Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mexico Business Symposium. We're glad that you're here. We're sure that there will be many things shared with you today that will help you in understanding how to do business in Mexico. My name is Harvey Scott. I'm the director of the International Trade and Diplomacy Office within the Governor's Office of Economic Development. I'd like to recognize Governor Herbert for being here with us today. Thank you very much, Governor. As a brief introduction, the International Trade and Diplomacy Office really is the governor's arm of international business within GoEd. And we essentially help businesses do international business. We help them export products. We help them import if that's necessary. But most importantly, we help businesses abroad find Utah. We want foreign direct investment here in the state. And that's what the International Trade and Diplomacy Office does. I have a fantastic team. In fact, if just quickly, if I can get the International Trade and Diplomacy team to stand up. Brett, Franz. This is a fantastic team. I told Franz I wasn't going to tell this joke, but I'm going to anyway. We totaled up the number of years of experience that we have, international experience that we have in the office, and we calculated that we have about 110 years. 40 of those were accounted for through Franz. Less than half, but that's still a sizable piece when you're including 15 people. So we're grateful to be here. I'd like to, of course, recognize the sponsor of this event today, Wells Fargo Bank. Dean Lukart and his team, thank you very much for your support and for all that you do for businesses here in Utah and abroad. It's actually a tremendous opportunity to be in Utah. As we all know, we read the newspapers, we see that there are tremendous opportunities here in the state. This event is actually the first of its kind. We're going to do this for every trade mission that we do here on out. There will be a kickoff meeting where we're engaging with industry, with the private businesses here in Utah, and you're going to help us, the governor's office, understand where we should be doing business, how we should be doing business, and how we can best support you. The governor is a small business owner himself, or was. He understands the economy. He's very supportive, and we're very excited about this. And when you registered, there was a question about whether or not you wanted to be involved in a business advisory council. There will be a follow-up email to that for those of you who said yes, and we will invite you to participate as is necessary. If I could just also ask for all of you to mute your electronic devices. We're recording this event, so that would be very helpful. Our first speaker today is Governor Herbert. I don't have a long bio on him. He doesn't need one. He's very well known. He's very busy and very effective in his job. He's the 17th governor of this great state, Governor Herbert.
Well, thank you, Harvey. I do appreciate all the experience we have in GoEd on international business. And I know it's not an easy job. And so if we have 140 years of experience, and Franz having most of it, if we figure in dog years, it's probably like 820 years of experience, because I know it's a tough assignment, but one that we really are kind of getting our stride on. We're really doing well, thanks to many people. Lou Kramer's here with us, has helped us expand that operation through our World Trade Center, and many of you are part and parcel of the successes we're having. So thank you very much for being here. I can tell you, I look here, and it's almost like standing room only. It's the fact that my security guys are standing, and he's bringing me water here. So thank you. I've been speaking too much here. Thank you very much. At any rate, you'd think that everywhere the governor would go, there'd be standing room only crowds. I mean, that's what my wife thinks it should be. But unfortunately, it's not always that way. I was invited to speak not too long ago at a place downtown, and the organizer of the event said, Governor, if you'll come and speak, we can guarantee you at least 500 people will show up. This is such an important topic. If you'll come, we'll have a great turnout. Well, he convinced me that I should do it. So I thought, 500 people, that'd be pretty good. So I go to one of the ballrooms downtown in the hotel, and I get there, and I see about 500 chairs set up, but there's not anybody really sitting in the chairs. But I'm a few minutes early, and this is Utah, so maybe it'll start maybe a few minutes late. People arrive, a little later. But at about 10 minutes after the hour, there's only about 20 people sitting out in the seats. And I could tell the guy was getting a little embarrassed. And, I said, Governor, I thought we'd have 500 people. I'm a little surprised and embarrassed about not having people here. Should we start? And I says, well, tell me, did you tell people that I was going to be here speaking? And he says, no, I did not. But word must have leaked out. Anyway, thank you for being here and putting up with a few remarks here that I think hopefully will find mutually beneficial. I do recognize Paul Alstrom, co-founder of Altra Venture Mexico, Al Zapanta, president and CEO of the U.S.-Mexico Chamber of Commerce, Javier Palmeras, my good friend here, president and CEO of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Consul Eduardo Arnold, Council of Mexico based in Salt Lake City, and members of the business community and GoEd and EDCU and others. Again, I'm honored to be with all of you. As I thought about what we're trying to accomplish here today, I would note something that most of you probably know, and that is that Utah and Mexico actually share a rich history. As you know, Utah was once part of Mexico. And if you go back to 1821, when we had the Utah Territory, this region that we got independence from Spain and what was become the Utah Territory, that was part of Mexico. And we had a lot of trade relationship with Mexico at that point in time. It reached a peak in the 1830s when pelts brought trappers between $4 and $6 a pound. So, Lou, we were exporting and importing stuff way back in the 1830s with our friends. And today the relationship between Utah and Mexico has come full circle as we are stronger economically with our government relations than ever before. And it's a mutually beneficial relationship, as it should be. Here are a few facts to consider about that relationship. Mexico buys more U.S. products than any other nation except Canada. And through that process known as production sharing, our two countries work together to build products. So we're working together. Currently, roughly $1.5 billion of trade flows between the United States and Mexico borders on a daily basis. 40% of U.S. imports from Mexico are actually produced in the United States. And during the past 20 years, Utah exports to Mexico have increased 851%. Additionally, over the past 10 years, our exports to Mexico have quadrupled, with imports from Mexico reaching $4.4 billion in 2012, and an increase of over 500% in the past 5 years. Those are good numbers. Those are good statistics between our country and Mexico. But there's clearly a lot of room to grow. The potential of Mexico, I think we all understand, is significant. And the potential of our trade relations with Mexico and the United States, and particularly Mexico and Utah, which is really a good, comfortable fit for many reasons, is something that we need to look at and see if we can't, in fact, do better. My belief is we can do significantly better. As many of you know, and I'm sure you all have my State of the State address on your nightstand, you're studying it. I know Kirk Jowers is reading it and looking for flaws, can't find any. But as I laid out the State of the State, we are strong and getting stronger. But I've also challenged our business community and our folks at GoEd and others that we need to improve our export business by $9 billion by the end of 2015. Again, you can understand and appreciate the significant economic benefit that would have to the folks of Utah. It's, in fact, a doable goal. It's realistic. It's not something that's just pie in the sky. $9 billion sounds like a lot, and it is. But if we're going to get to that by the end of 2015, increasing our trade and strengthening our ties with Mexico is going to be a big part of that effort. We have, again, a natural affinity. We have a growing Hispanic population here in Utah that is a big part of our fabric and is doing so many good things. In this country, over 5,000 companies are owned by immigrants from Mexico or native of Mexico or descendants of Mexican immigrants. They've found and have flourished, again, because of, I think, the culture, the work ethic, the family ties that we see from our Hispanic friends to the South, fits very well with that entrepreneurial spirit. They understand to go out there and work hard and pay your dues, and you have a chance to make a profit. So they become very good business people. Revenues from Latino-owned businesses in Utah have grown 135%, which is 3 times the national average. So America's a great place to do business, but a better place to do business is here in Utah. Of course, we knew that already, didn't we? We've been named as the most business-friendly environment in all of America, and one of the premier business destinations in the world. So again, people are looking to Utah now as a place to expand their operations, to co-locate, to improve their bottom line, to improve their market share. And with our friends to the south, this is a great opportunity for us to, in fact, improve our economic relations, which will be mutually beneficial to Utah and to Mexico. I believe that we probably have only begun to tap the potential. We know that some of our struggles we've had here in America economically, the struggles that they've had in Mexico economically over the years, but I think right now is a perfect time, an opportunity for us to, in fact, do good things which will be, again, mutually beneficial to Utah and to Mexico. And so because of that, that's why we're organizing a trade mission to Mexico and to Guadalajara in April to explore the opportunities that are there and see what we can do for with additional cooperation, and whether that be educational exchange, technological exchange, business opportunities, venture capital opportunities, energy, which is a big deal for us here in Utah, and certainly a big deal for the country, America, and certainly great potential in Mexico. So on many fronts, we have opportunities where we will fit together, I think, very well if we explore those possibilities. So I really am inviting you today, for you business people, to come and be a part of that. We'd like you to sign up. We'd like you to look at your calendars and see if April works for you, and to be a part of this effort and this journey down to Mexico as we try to go there and build personal relationships. Really, it's easy to do business with friends. And frankly, as we do more business, people become more friendly. It kind of works both ways. And so I'm looking forward to that opportunity. I quote Lou Kramer oft times, the font of knowledge and wisdom. But he says the most important distance in doing international business is the final 3 feet. And that really has to do with us developing relationships and friendships and opportunities to network with people with a common goal of expanding economic opportunity, creating wealth, which creates jobs. And you understand that as well as anybody. So it's that personal relationship we're looking forward to, and there's no better time than right now. So let me just say in closing, as we look at the concept of is there any better time, I would suggest to you that this is the right time. And for a lot of reasons, the stars are aligning up for us to do some really great things. And a part of it's the appointment of Eduardo Arnold as Mexican Consul General to Utah. Somebody who understands what we do here and will help us in forging pathways forward. The U.S.-Mexico Chamber of Commerce selection of Salt Lake City to host a new Intermountain chapter, beating out Nevada, Colorado, Wyoming, and Idaho. Again, a recognition of the opportunities here, specifically in Utah. The U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce selection, Javier has helped us with this, to host their annual conference in Salt Lake City during the fall of this year. So we are going to be a focal here when we bring Hispanic businesses to Utah and host that opportunity. And we can use that with what we've built upon in Mexico, even for future opportunities. And last but not least, the global spotlight on Mexico partnership between the University of Utah, Utah Valley University for the 2013-2014 academic year. So a lot of things are happening right now. So now is the time. Again, let me extend an invitation for all of you to join with us. It will be not only fun, but I think it will be very productive. And to spend 3 or 4 days down in Mexico with our brothers and sisters down south, It'll be a great opportunity to help improve people's lives. At the end of the day, I'd like to talk about, it really is about people. What we do, it should be to improve people's lives, to make their lives better. You as business people find niches in the marketplace, provide products, services that improve people's lives. As you do that, you make money. You make a profit. That incentive that comes with free market competition is a great principle. It's what's made America great. Some in the country and some in the world are getting away from that. Mexico is starting to embrace it more than ever before. We have not forgotten it. The reason why Utah is so successful is because we understand those principles that come with free market competition. We call it capitalism, and we're not embarrassed about it. We're not shy. You as entrepreneurs know that in Utah we have a very friendly business environment. We want you to be successful. We want you to create wealth. We want you in doing so you'll hire more people and improve their lives in doing so. So we thank you for all that you do, for all the contributions you're already making. We think this will be an opportunity to expand our horizons and do even greater things. So please come and join with me. Thank you. Adios, amigos.
Thank you, Governor Herbert. That Spanish accent you had there was very good. Consul Arnold, did you coach him on that? Absolutely. Good. Our next speaker is Mr. Javier Palomares. He's the president and CEO of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. It's America's largest Hispanic business association. His opinions and points of view have appeared in leading media outlets including NBC, ABC, Fox, Univision, Telemundo, and a whole list of other outlets. He also serves on the FCC Federal Advisory Committee on Diversity, the Comcast NBC Universal Diversity Advisory Council, and the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Advisory Board. It's a pleasure to have you here, Mr. Palomares. Thank you for making the trip out from Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. It's a real pleasure to be here. And Governor, that was fantastic, sir. And I don't vote in Utah. I just thought it was kind of a nice little touch there, sir. Very nicely done. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to thank Governor Gary Herbert for including the USHCC in today's press conference announcing Utah's commitment to strengthening trade relations with Mexico. As usual, the governor is way ahead of the pack. The USHCC represents America's 3.2 million Hispanic-owned businesses that together contribute more than $468 billion to the American economy every year. We also advocate on behalf of 215 major American corporations. And we do this through our network of more than 200 local chambers and business associations nationwide. And while the USHCC represents the interests of businessmen and women who happen to be of Hispanic descent, we never forget that we are first and foremost American businesses. And every tax bill we pay, every job we create, every product we manufacture, and every service we provide goes to benefit this American economy. Now, right now, Hispanics account for nearly 14% of Utah's total population. In fact, Utah's Hispanic population has skyrocketed by nearly 80% in the last decade alone. And with that growth came Utah's thriving Hispanic business community. I believe Hispanic firms are part of Utah's business future. Today, there are over 10,000 Hispanic-owned firms in Utah, contributing more than $1.3 billion to this state's economy. These businesses are part of an engine of opportunity that is creating jobs and fueling economic development throughout this state. Also, right here in Salt Lake City, one of the nation's most active, cohesive, and effective Hispanic chambers has been here proudly for several years. And I'm very pleased to see leaders like Don Salazar, Greg Weingartner, Al Zapanta, El Consulado, Arnault, Keith Atkinson, Alex Guzman, David Thomas. I tried to write all the names of the folks I ran into. Of course, Luke Kramer, Dean Lukehart, Harvey, Kirk Jowers, and of course, Franz. I saw Franz as I walked in, and I've lost him. I don't even need to, it's just like Oprah. You don't even need the second name. I'd also, absolutely. I'd also like to recognize, I'd like to recognize a couple of great allies of America's small business community who are also here with us. First, of course, Wells Fargo. Wells has been a trusted partner of the USHCC for many years, funding our Chamber Training Institute, which we will be bringing to Salt Lake City later this year, which trains and empowers local chamber leaders to go back to their communities and provide local business owners the necessary skills, networking, resources, and all the other elements that come along and that are necessary for continued success. And of course, our good friends at Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs is another exemplary leader that invests in America's small business community nationwide. Their 10,000 Small Businesses Initiative is a $500 million investment in a program that to date has directly helped more than 2,000 business owners across America with the professional training, the resources, and the funding that's critically necessary for an entrepreneur, particularly during the startup phase. And I was proud to be part of the team that brought the 10,000 Small Businesses program right here to Salt Lake City, where local business owners like Juan Cardenas of Small Mountain Builders, Julieta Hernandez of Matrix Massage, Sabrina Morales of Lingüística Internacional, all of them went through the program, and all report that after going through the program, they have created new jobs, they've grown revenue, and they've continued to grow their companies right here in Utah. Absolutely. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. The resources and dedication that both Wells Fargo and Goldman Sachs have invested in America's small businesses is felt strongly in countless communities across America. But importantly, it's also felt right here in Salt Lake City. Both of these organizations invested in this state because, like us, they saw the promise that is Utah. Finally, I'd like to close by once again thanking you, Mr. Governor, for your visionary leadership, first in inviting us, and I'd say insisting, that we bring the nation's largest gathering of Hispanic business leaders, our association's national convention, to this beautiful, friendly, and vibrant city. A city that embraces those who want to work or who want to create work. It's not lost on me that 4 years ago, in 2010, a group of business, political, law enforcement, and faith leaders gathered in this city to sign the Utah Compact. It received widespread support from some of Utah's most notable figures, among them Governor Gary Herbert, former Utah Governor John Huntsman, and of course Luke Kramer. The statement of principles addressed with moderation and with civility the complex challenges associated with a broken immigration system. The principles outlined by the Utah Compact encompassed true American values of hard work, of rule of law, and of compassion, and recognized that our nation's immigrants honored those very same beliefs. Now, all of this at a time when some of Utah's neighboring states were adopting draconian anti-immigrant laws that targeted hardworking individuals and consequently proved to be very detrimental to their economies. The following year, Governor Herbert signed into law a series of immigration bills that embraced Utah's immigrant population and allowed them to be active contributors to this state's economy. In my mind, that is true American leadership, sir. So it is that very vision, this political courage illustrated by Utah's leaders, that has inspired the USHCC. Together, Our purpose is simply to illustrate that Hispanic businesses are American businesses, and we are here to work with all sectors and all people, so we may continue to create jobs, to honor the American dream, and to prove that when one has the courage to do the right thing, an endless sea of opportunity will surely appear. So I'm humbled and honored to officially announce to you, Governor, and the rest of our friends, that on September 21st, we will be bringing the largest gathering of Hispanic business leaders in America, the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce's National Convention, right here to Salt Lake City. With that, thank you, Governor, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Javier, thank you very much. I understand that if you need to leave, he's got an airplane to catch back to Washington to meet with the White House tomorrow. Our next speaker, it's actually a great pleasure for me to be able to introduce Paul. I've known Paul for many years now, and if there is anybody in this state that's been calling for businesses to look south instead of east, it's Mr. Paul Ahlstrom. Paul Ahlstrom is the co-founder and founding partner of Alta Ventures in Mexico. He co-founded the firm in 2010. Previously to this, he was the founder of V-Spring Capital, and he was also the primary founder. He founded also another company called Nolix, which he served as the chief executive officer. He sits on several advisory boards, the UTFC, BYU's eBusiness Center, and Corda Technologies. He serves as a member of the Utah Angels and has participated in several regional angel investment competitions. Mr. Ahlstrom is a regular speaker and supporter of the Rocky Mountain, New Mexico, and Utah's entrepreneurial communities. He holds an honorary degree from Netanya Academic College in Israel for his work in promoting peace. Mr. Ahlstrom received a BA in communications from BYU, and he's here to speak with us today about his success in Mexico. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Harvey, and thank you, Governor. And Consul Arnault, es un placer verte. Gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. And good to see good friends, and delighted to be here. I saw that Wells Fargo is a sponsor, and I thank them for the sponsorship today. I got a call this morning from a good friend who's a senior vice president at Wells Fargo, Lee Winslet in California. And he was calling me to support a diversity initiative at Wells Fargo. And I said, finally, you guys are going to recognize the Swedes. He goes, no, that wasn't it, Paul. But, and other, coincidence, I opened my first account today at Wells Fargo, so happy about that. For our Peru fund. Now, Kurt, good to see you, Mr. Jowers. Right, so I'm supposed to turn this on, right? You told me that. All right, I'll get it. There we go. All right, so now I don't look Mexican, but every year since I was a little kid, I would spend my summers down in Mexico, and my grandfather lived in Mexico, and when the early saints moved to Utah, it was Mexico. And my family just went a little further south. And it was all Mexico at the time, so it really didn't matter, right? And so I spent every summer as a kid down there with my grandparents, and loved the country, loved the people. My mom was born and raised there in Chihuahua, and the mountains. No running water, no electricity, couldn't have been more poor, couldn't have been more happy. So as I think about our journey back down to Mexico, our family's actually been chased out of Mexico twice. Once by Pancho Villa, and then once during the agrarian movement. And when I came back down to Mexico, I said, this is our third attempt. Either it works or it doesn't work this time. And I had this great picture. When the Mexican government invested into my funds down in Mexico, I had this great picture of these pioneers of the wagon train. And I said, this was the Ahlstrom's first attempt. It wasn't it was the Clough's actually, first attempt to move down into Mexico. And then I had a picture of my family in our Yukon Denali moving down this time. And I said, here's our current attempt in our modern covered wagon. The question I get most often is, what in the world are you doing down in Mexico? And let me give you a little background as to why this might even be more shocking. I'm married, 6 kids. We have a dog that we picked up in Mexico and brought back with us. Ever since I've been a kid, every 2 years I've done a startup company. And I've tanked it or sold it, and I've just gotten a little better at it over the years. After I sold my second software company, I started a venture fund called VSpring. And we have launched many companies here in Utah. Some of the ones you might recognize: Landesk, Ancestry.com, Altiris, MetaConnect, Control4 just went public, ComScore, we just sold that one. And we've had many, many successful companies here and a really successful investing career here in Utah. In fact, we had just finished raising we launched our second fund and just raising our third fund. When somebody asked me this question about what could we do what emerging markets would you invest into, and we started researching, if you weren't investing outside the United States, where would you invest, where would you go? We started researching this strategy. And when we launched in Mexico, we first launched a growth equity fund, and then eventually we launched a venture fund and created the first venture capital fund, technology fund in the country. And I get this question. So I have a Jewish friend. He just said, "You were crazy." In fact, I had 2 Jewish friends. One of them said, "My wife thought for sure that you were on the run from the law. You just went to Mexico. Not a lot of goodbyes. They thought you were in trouble." That was Bob Goldberg who said that. And my other Jewish friend, Paul Pilzer, just said, "You are crazy. You are at the top of your career here in Utah. You just raised the largest fund in the history of the state. We just closed on $164 million. Why in the world would you just walk away from that?" And let me tell you the behind-the-scenes research. I gave this presentation once before for Consul Arnault at the request of Harvey, and this will be the second time I've shared this in public. In the few years since we've been down there, we've been able to have a blast. We've had a major impact in the country. In fact, I even got to name the venture capital industry in Mexico. In Mexico, the name of the industry before I came down was called Capital de Riesgo. For those Spanish speakers, risk capital. Suena muy feo, no? And the English translation is, you will lose all your money capital. I think the Mexicans got it right. And so I thought, if we're going to build an industry, we can't name it risk capital, which has a very negative connotation. We're going to have to come up with something more interesting. And so I held a naming contest at the Tec de Monterrey, the largest private university system in Latin America. And the students had bitter fights around what they're going to call this industry, and they ended up arguing between Capital Aventura and Capital Emprendedor. And the girls started hissing at Aventura, and I said, "So my Spanish is a little rusty, but that means adventure." They said, "No, but the connotation means to have an affair." And so I said, "Well, we can't name the industry that." So we went with entrepreneur capital, Capital Emprendedor. And it stuck. And that's what all of Latin America is now called Capital Emprendedor. So Utah named the venture capital industry in Latin America. It's kind of cool. I wouldn't have written this article, and I wouldn't have titled it that way. This was an article that came out, and there were several articles on me. One was in the Wall Street Journal, and this was one as how a Mormon VC ended up betting everything on Mexico. And there's more truth to that than I realized at the time. When I got down there, my wife was diagnosed with a terminal cancer, and she's fine. The Mexicans, when I tell them that, they 100% say, "We're praying for your family," and they do. They pray. And they call and report back in on how they're doing, how their prayers are going. Well, the prayers are working because Jenny's in complete remission. And but there's a time when I thought, I'm nuts. I've walked away from really the pinnacle of my career, moved to Mexico. My wife has cancer. I've basically walked away from the funds, and I'm completely starting over here. And there were many times, many dark moments when I wondered if this was such a bright idea. Let me tell you the process that we went through, and I'll kind of fast forward through the research. We don't have time to go through in depth. I want to give you the behind-the-scenes thought process that I went through to walk away from basically $400 million under management and a very solid career to go down to Mexico. So what would make me make that move? If you don't think I'm crazy, then hold on. We started researching the emerging markets in 2005. We selected Mexico 2006. Our growth equity fund we launched was 2007. I didn't move down there. We created a fund and recruited people. It went really well. We started buying companies, large companies. We bought a rental car leasing company. We bought the fuel servicing company. 40% of the ships that take on fuel in Mexican ports, that's our company. It's called Bunkers. We bought Central Parking of Mexico. We control 30% of the parking lots of the country, mostly in Mexico City, but also in Monterrey and Guadalajara and elsewhere. We bought the only medical device anesthesia company in the country, and we turned it into a services play. We bought a chain of hospitals called the Merriman in Puerto Vallarta, Cancun, Cabo, doing very well. Our investment hypothesis was working out. In the middle of that, the Mexican government came to me and said, you're enjoying your time here. We like having you here. We'd like you to consider expanding your investment profile and helping us create the venture capital industry as well as you're doing growth equity funds. And growth equity is a little different. You're expanding the growth profile of an existing profitable company. So we're investing into cash flowing companies. Venture capital is a little different. As you know, you're investing into two entrepreneurs in a garage and an idea sometimes. And without a long history of this asset class in Mexico, it's not for the faint of heart. So I accepted the invitation of the Mexican government. I got this call from Jose Antonio Aguilar Bueno. Say that fast 3 times. He became one of my very good friends. He was the head of the National Development Bank, and he said, when are you going to come down here next? I said, I don't know, a few months. He said, no, what about next week? And I was speaking in Washington, D.C. next week. And so he flew out to Washington, D.C. and said, we want to invite you to help establish the venture capital industry in our country. And I went home, I told Jenny, I said, we just got invited to create an industry in a country. This is awesome. And my partners at VSpring were not nearly as excited as my wife was. But they got there eventually. And so we already had a commitment into the country with our growth equity fund, but we weren't actually on the ground there. I moved to Monterrey, Mexico, 2009, right in time for the narco wars and a lot of other fun things. And we ended up launching our venture fund in 2011. Let me take you behind the scenes as to what we saw in Mexico that attracted us. So I'll try to do it from here because I don't have a roaming mic. What we were looking for first was stability. My brother-in-law came home one day and he's telling me about these no-signature mortgages he was signing up in the United States, and I was getting very nervous for our economy. And as I was thinking, when you think of venture capital, you think long-term, think 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. So it's not a short-term, it's a long-term platform that you want to build. So we were looking for a platform to expand and outside the United States. And I didn't start with Mexico. We started literally with every country on the planet. And the first thing we're looking for was stability. So at a macro level, we're looking for economic stability as it relates to the public sector deficit spending on an annual basis or the debt to GDP ratio of the country. And as we did this analysis, we looked at the countries in the Ring of Fire over there are Greece and Ireland and Spain and the United States. And up here, where they have very little public sector deficit spending on an annual basis and a low debt to GDP ratio, was Mexico, Colombia, Chile, Argentina. And that was shocking to us. We're like, wait a second, that used to be reversed. We used to have fiscal responsibility, and it was Latin America countries that were out of control. Well, they had learned all their lessons. You had the Argentine crisis, the Mexican multiple crises every 6 years on election cycles. And they had learned their lessons, and they had very tight macroeconomic stability. We looked at the countries that were leveraging up on debt or deleveraging. Latin America was, over the past 10 years, is one of 2 sectors in the world that has been deleveraging as a region. We looked at growth. And going into this, we were projecting out growth, and then we had some actual numbers later. But it looked like most of the growth was in emerging markets. And so we started to get this picture of emerging markets had already gone through these cycles. You had experienced managers in the country, very sophisticated, and much to against the what you would think. And then you had most of your growth in emerging markets, as we all know. And as we started drilling down on the growth, we looked at the different regions of growth. So this was 1995 snapshot up to 2005. So this is when we first started our analysis. And if you look at these lines, you see this is the bottom line is and the top lines are contribution to global GDP growth. The top line is the advanced economies of the world trending down. The bottom line is the emerging markets coming up. And as we looked at this slide, it looked like these lines were going to cross in a few years out, where the emerging economies of the world were going to be contributing more to global GDP growth than all of the advanced economies in the world combined. It's shocking. I'll give it away. Those lines touched in 2012 and crossed over. Crazy, huh? Ouch. So, but from an investor perspective, I want to be where the growth is, wouldn't you? A rising tide lifts all ships. And so we said, get me into one of those emerging markets. I want to build companies where the markets are coming up as opposed to fighting. So we started with all the countries of the world. Then we narrowed it down to the definition of emerging markets, so GDP under 14,000 per capita. And then we looked at the larger emerging markets, over 75 billion GDP, over 50 million people. 15 countries we narrowed it down to on our look for the next great investment region. So in those 15 countries, we started, can I get a water? We started drilling down on each one of these countries and did a fairly in-depth analysis in the top 15. We went to Goldman Sachs and we talked to Goldman about their long-term growth environment scores. Now, Goldman came up with this term called the BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India, China. And we said, so we went to Goldman and we said, what about the next 11? What about Mexico? And why didn't you include Mexico in the BRIC analysis? And at the time, Mexico had just gone, oh, thank you very much. Mexico is Wells Fargo working for you. So Mexico had just gone through their financial crisis, and Clinton had just bailed Mexico out. And it wasn't exactly a great time to be talking about how stable they were because they had just gone belly up as a country. So if you look at Goldman said, well, we have this new analysis we're doing on our long-term growth environment scores, and Mexico and China and Brazil and Turkey are about in the same long-term growth range. Since then, fast forward a few years later, the Goldman Sachs guys came up with a new term called the MIST, Mexico, Indonesia, South Korea, and Turkey. And if you look at the BRIC index versus the MIST index, which is the next emerging markets, is crushing the returns on the BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. So wait a second, I was told to look at the BRIC. And our analysis, when we brought our analysis forth, in Mexico, literally everybody thought I was crazy. Goldman thought I was crazy. Everybody thought I was nuts. But I said, look at the data, and we drilled on the data. This is our snapshot back in 2005 when we started our first analysis. And so we looked at Brazil, Mexico, India, China, Russia, and where were the previous ones. And we had different factors, market size, technology indicators, macroeconomic indicators, entrepreneurship, how many days to start a business. And we sliced and diced this 100 different ways. This is one of those indicators. So this is the ease of doing business indicator. So Mexico, the lower the number, the better, is more 50% easier to do business in than China, India, Russia, or Brazil. If it's easier to do business, people will do business. And all the friction, the less friction, the higher the probability of having good outcomes. So this was just one of the indicators. We looked at India, we looked at China, we looked at Russia. We looked at a lot of factors. This is the macro growth, and this is the sovereign risk rating, so how Moody's and the different rating agencies look at the problem. Mexico at the time was rated BBB+. I don't know if you guys heard, but Mexico was just upgraded. A. Second country in Latin America to hit an A rating. That'd be a bummer to be passed the United States on those ratings. But that's astonishing. Last week, Moody's upgraded them to A. We looked at the market size in terms of purchasing power, and because we thought there's a story here that I'm not fully understanding. The purchasing power of Latin America is about $3 trillion. Mexico, all the way down to Argentina. That is $1 trillion greater than Middle Eastern Africa, the same size as China, and greater than India. So that as Latin America as a region has as much purchasing power because it's actually richer per capita than a lot of these areas. So we looked at the region of Latin America. The giants are Mexico and Brazil. We looked at Chile, Argentina, Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela, yikes. Ecuador, I love Ecuador. I served my mission there. It's not going to be a while. It'll be a while before anybody gets to Ecuador. They're left-leaning, and it's an important time in Latin America. You have Venezuela pulling Latin America left, and Ecuador is going with them. But the smart countries, Peru, Colombia, Chile, Mexico, have figured this out, and these guys are economic powerhouses. Okay, so this just says we did our homework on the secondary research. Our trending hypothesis was Mexico. We compared Mexico to Brazil, and we sliced it and diced it. Okay, so now we did that was our secondary research. It's hard to tell you the depth we went into because you're betting your career on this, right? We looked at each of the regions of Mexico. We looked at the industries by region from Aguascalientes to Cancun. What industries were performing well in the industry? And we drilled down, and this is how I remembered Mexico as a kid. That is the hometown where my mom grew up. Casas Grandes, Mexico. And it's called, it was Viejo Casas Grandes. It wasn't even the new Casas Grandes, it was the old Casas Grandes. And it was outside of the old Casas Grandes. And, and it was up in the mountains, and it was nowhere. I was shocked to see the electronics industry in Mexico and the depth of the number of companies that have set up shop in Mexico because of NAFTA. Look at the back of your TV. Look at the back of your refrigerator. It was made in Mexico if you bought it within the last 5 years. It is not made anywhere but Mexico. It was not made in the United States. Huge shift to manufacturing that happened in Latin America, specifically in Mexico, because you have the world's largest economy, and in manufacturing you get two or three things. You usually get cost, you get quality, you get speed. Mexico now gives you all three. The number of days it takes to get from Mexico City to Chicago in a semi-truck is 5 days or less. 22 days from Shanghai. The cost of a 55-foot container from Mexico City is a fraction of the cost it takes to get it from Mexico City to Shanghai. So it's like, I'm going to get my numbers off. It's about $2,200 from Mexico City to Chicago, and it's lower $5,600 to Shanghai. So you have more expensive in transportation. It's longer, and the quality in Mexico has really come up. In fact, we have many companies coming to us that want to manufacture. There's a new Utah company called Space Monkey. They're moving their manufacturing from China to Mexico because Mexico does not steal your intellectual property. That wasn't meant as a joke. The home appliance industry, as I talked about, all the flat screen TVs, the automobile industry, I bet you nobody in the room knew this except Consul Arnault. Mexico is the number 2 provider of petroleum to the United States. The first time I showed this in public, somebody shouted out, "Well, then let's invade Mexico." And then somebody else shouted out, "Again?" And you have many homegrown industries. And so if you look at the stock market index from 2005 to 2013, it's up and to the right. The U.S. trade between the United States, as was said earlier, is $1 billion. Right? And the United States is Mexico is the number 2 purchaser of, Mexico is the number 2 buyer of U.S. goods, Canada being number 1. But if you look at the shift between 2007 and 2010, Mexico jumped up and Canada's been flat for the past 5-6 years. All right, so I'm not going to spend much more time. We did our homework. And in addition to that, we did our secondary research, and we looked at the analysis between the attractiveness of the marketplace versus the capital that was available in the marketplace comparing the countries of Latin America to each other, we mapped a lot of different things, including the number of businesses by sector and by industry and by region, and we saw this huge gap and this huge opportunity. And so for me, I was pretty excited about this. One of the things that was missing was venture capital. And the closest venture capital in Mexico was Texas. And getting across that border is very difficult. We talked about the impact of venture capital in the United States and what a boost it's been to the U.S. economy. And we did many of these presentations and analysis, and these industries, IT, biotech, medical device, network security, online, social media, clean tech, these industries were created on the back of venture capital. And if Mexico didn't have this asset class, it was not going to participate in the new economy. Although the economy is growing and robust, this is the early risk capital that helps drive these innovative opportunities. And Mexico realized that they needed this. So was it ready? Ready or not, we went in. And we talked about the entrepreneur ecosystem drivers in the country. And let me just jump ahead. After I did my secondary research, you think, oh, that's good enough, right? Then we did 100 meetings on the ground in Mexico. Now, some of them weren't so rough. But the reality is there's a lot of different Mexicos. There's the Mexico of Santa Fe. There's the Mexico of Querétaro, which is gleaming buildings and big industrial parks. And then there's the Mexico of Juarez and the northern border and the dangers there. There's a reality, there's a lot of different Mexicos. And this is how we see Mexico from this side of the border. We see the violence, we see the immigration issues, we see the drug cartels, and we're scared. And as we drilled into it and we went across the border, we got a completely different picture. We met with government, we met with industry, we met with many of the families of Mexico, the research universities, the financial partners, and we spent time in there, and my Saturday in Mexico looked a lot like my Saturday in Utah, going to Home Depot in the morning and Costco in the afternoon. We identified the issues that had prevented the growth of this industry and this asset class in Mexico. And we worked with the Mexican government to identify the policy issues that were preventing the growth of the Mexican venture capital industry, the entrepreneur activity in the country. And we worked with them to fix those. This is one of my meetings with Peña Nieto, who's the current president of Mexico. And I put that in there just because that's kind of a cool picture. He's given me a gift here, like keep on my shelf. And we taught him about the asset class of venture capital. And from that meeting, there's a guy here on the right. You can't see him very well. He is now a cabinet-level position in Mexico, head of entrepreneurship, reporting directly to the president. And you fast forward, Peña Nieto, he has his challenges, but he has gotten after it. And he has driven reforms unlike anything we've ever seen in Latin America. Energy reforms, education reforms, telecommunications reforms. He has had the hammer down. And we took a snapshot of the entrepreneur ecosystem in 2008, have worked closely with the different groups in Mexico, driving many different initiatives to drive outcomes in the country. And we've seen a significant amount of deal flow and outcomes and opportunities. This is a snapshot of the entrepreneur ecosystem today in Mexico. And just to put a finer point on it, we have our fund. We did okay in Utah. We create a lot of great companies here. My returns in Mexico are more than double what I did in Utah. My internal rate of return in Mexico is the #1 in Latin America. And it puts me in the top decile of U.S. performers. And we did this in Mexico. Peña Nieto himself has gotten behind this. We were privileged to go to Los Pinos, which is the Mexican White House, a few weeks ago. And he announced his support for the entrepreneurs of Mexico. I'm the ally. And he created not only this cabinet-level position, but a group to invest into funds. And they've launched, since he's been in office, they've launched 20 new venture funds in the country. And I'm getting the high sign. So let me just say, if you are thinking about investing into, I'll make these slides available to Harvey, and he can give them out to whoever. It's a big deck. It doesn't email very well. But these are the sectors that we've identified that we're investing into: technology, consumer, education, security, non-banking finance, healthcare. And we're moving into telecom, big data, e-commerce, clean tech, mobile entertainment. Looks a lot like the United States, doesn't it? We've put our money where our mouth is. We've made over 25 investments now, and the results have been solid. And so, come on down. The weather's nice. We'll mi casa su casa. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, very much. And Governor, thank you very much for being here today. All right. Our next speaker is Mr. Al Zapanta. He's the president and CEO of the U.S.-Mexico Chamber of Commerce. He is a retired U.S. Army Major General. He began his career as an industrial engineer for Bethlehem Steel. And from there he moved to Arco, where he served as Director of Governmental Affairs. He's held numerous presidential appointments, including White House Fellow in 73 and 74, this Senate-confirmed Assistant Secretary of the Interior for Management Administration. President Ronald Reagan appointed Mr. Zapanta to the U.S. State Department Advisory Committee on International Trade, Technology, and Development from 81 to 87. Also, Mr. Zapanta, thank you very much for being with us today. I know you've made a long trip to be here. It's a pleasure to have you here, and we look forward to your remarks.
Thank you. I appreciate you all coming out. It's kind of a special time for us to really start the process of establishing the Intermountain chapter of the U.S.-Mexico Chamber of Commerce here in Salt Lake. I want to first thank Governor Herbert for being with us. We'll be having an announcement a little bit later on and probably next month. But Harvey, thank you again. You've been really a stalwart in getting us here and making this happen for us. Kurt, good to see you again. Last time we saw each other, we were down in Dallas together, so hopefully we'll see you in Mexico City with us. Our good friend, Stuart Dye, is the former chairman of the board, and he's a native from here, so I've got to give him his accolade because he's the one that really started to make things happen for us. And so thank you, Stuart, for being with us. I wanted to just give you a good, quick sense of what the U.S.-Mexico Chamber is about. It's over 40 years old this year. It started as a very special relationship between the U.S. and Mexico that was brought together by the two presidents at the time, President Echeverria and President Nixon. And it was through the insight of a former ambassador to the United States, Jose Huanoyoque, that really helped start our chamber. Our good friend, Consul General Arnault, has been somebody that has been very supportive. I have a good chance to see and work with him in his previous engagement. Now here we are again going after it again, so gracias. The chamber is one that has specialized in a focus and a niche, and that's U.S. and Mexican business. It was really started with that intent, and we continue that. We get no government funding. It's all private sector, and it's from our membership. And you'll see that as we come into Salt Lake City. The first chairman of our board, because there were 20 Mexican entrepreneurs and 20 U.S. that started it in 1973. Our first chairman was David Rockefeller, and Pete Peterson was his co-chairman, who at that time was Secretary of Commerce, and of late the Blackstone Group, one of the major funds out of New York. And on the Mexican side, former Governor Miguel Alemán, the son of the first civilian president of Mexico, Miguel Alemán. So we've had a great history of both binational, both U.S. and Mexican. But the real core is our members. And the membership is made up of U.S. major corporations and Mexican, and where we try to focus on what kind of impact we can make in the policy that's being developed in both capitals. And so we also decided to start a foundation of the Chamber called the U.S.-Mexico Cultural and Educational Foundation, and where we have an internship program for Mexican students, and where we try to bring them for 10 weeks and really give them an immersion on both the work environment and some of our major companies, 10 weeks during the summer, as well as living with a U.S. family. and hopefully we're growing the next NAFTA leadership in the private sector. We also are now just embarking on establishing a high-tech innovation sustainable laboratory that was created about 12 years ago called the Binational Sustainable Lab out of New Mexico and El Paso. That is now becoming part of our foundation. So what we're looking to do is to figure out how we can help innovate and bring that kind of commercial entrepreneurship into the sector that basically will start to commercialize what's being done in some of our laboratories, such as Sandia, Los Alamos, Lawrence Livermore, and a few others. The other is that the governor is showing the leadership that he did by saying, yes, we need to engage Mexico. We need to do it because of the relationship and the historical but business relationship between Utah and Mexico. You've got great industry here. You've got historical relationships, not just because of the cultural, but also education. And so with that, as we move forward, one of the things that I wanted to announce is that we had signed 2 months ago with the Director General of ProMexico, the MOU that we started actually 5 years ago called Connect Mexico, and where we will be establishing a platform for approximately 250,000 small and medium-sized Mexican business that will be part of a supply chain and a platform for B2B, business to business, but also business to consumer that'll be established probably in the next 90 days. That was signed 2 months ago between myself, the head of ProMexico, and of course the Secretary of the Economy, Ildefonso Guajardo. And we'll be back down there, hopefully during our time with the, when we take the trade mission, but also back in October of this year, we'll be in Querétaro, because one of our major initiatives is with the Cumbre de Negocios that is headed up by Miguel Alemán, which is a major effort to bring finance and major business from throughout the world. It's kind of a knockoff, if you want to call it in that sense, of the World Economic Forum in Davos. And it's been going now 8 years, and so when we do our binational meeting, we'll do it at Querétaro, which, as you know, is the Aerospace Center now of Mexico. And then the second day will be in Mexico City. But I wanted you to know that this is a real endeavor, excuse me, an endeavor for us. It's the newest chapter that we'll be establishing in the last 8 years. And so, and we're doing it because we feel that there's a huge growth potential. There's all the underpinnings that we'll be able to develop, we think, not only from the medical and health sciences, but also education, as well as energy and mining. So it's all the pieces that make up who you are and what is growing in Mexico. Let me finally say that I want to thank Zions Bank, who is our first binational member. They graciously are providing our office, our headquarters, and I think it's something that hopefully we'll be back up here in the second week of March to basically inaugurate it and move forward with the chapter. And so what I'd like to do also is thank Wells Fargo. Is the Wells Fargo people here? You are our bank, both for the chamber and for the foundation in Washington, D.C., so you have a long-standing relationship with us. At this point, I think I'm going to stop there and just say it's an honor, it's a pleasure. I look forward to being with you, and one of the things we need to do is get better airline opportunities to get you between wherever and in Mexico. Thank you very much.
Al, thank you very much for those words. It's now my pleasure to introduce Consul Eduardo Arnault. He's relatively new to Salt Lake, but he's not new to the United States. He's had appointments in Denver and in Chicago. He's been very successful in all of his stints. In 2007, he was ratified by the Mexican Congress as the Consul General of Mexico in Denver, Colorado, and served in that position until March 2011. And he joined us here in Salt Lake City on July 9th of this last year, 2013. We're excited to have you here, Consul Arnault. I've had an opportunity to sit with you many times and to learn from you, and your enthusiasm is contagious, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. And Paul, it's great to see you again. It's always a pleasure. Welcome again to Salt Lake City. And well, good afternoon. Yes, my name is Eduardo Arnold. I am the new consul of Mexico here in Salt Lake. And it has been almost 6 months since I officially took the position at the consulate. And I feel extremely proud of this accomplishment for 2 reasons. Firstly, this position has given me the opportunity to represent my country in this beautiful region of the United States. And secondly, I'm the only consul in the state of Utah that holds a consul general career. It's easy to understand the reason behind Mexico's effort to establish a consulate in the state of Utah. Just over 300,000 Mexicans live in this territory, and naturally, Utah became a priority in our political and economic relations. Let's not forget that Utah is also home to the world headquarters of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So let me point out the improvements so far. The state of Utah is growing fast and becoming a key location for trade and investment. Just counting today with the presence of Al Zapanta and Javier Palomares gave us a clear understanding of how Utah is taking center stage among other states in the country. To put things into perspective, let me share some numbers with you. In 2012, Utah's export to Mexico reached 488 million, up 437 million from the level in 1993. In the same year, Utah imported from Mexico more than 4.9 billion. In the first half of 2013, Utah exported 261 million worth of products to Mexico, an increase of almost 20% in comparison with the same period last year. Among all U.S. states, Utah has ranked 35th as an exporter of goods to Mexico in the first semester of 2013. In 19 years of NAFTA, Utah's export to Mexico have increased by 851%, while those of the rest of the world rose 652%. This means that the export growth rate to Mexico is 1.3 times higher than its export growth rate for the rest of the world. Since NAFTA was implemented, Utah's sales to Mexico have grown at an annual average rate of almost 13%. Mexico is an important trading partner to Utah. It was ranked as the 8th largest export market for goods from this state in the first 6 months of 2013, up from 12th in 1993, illustrating the impact of NAFTA for Utah's growing businesses. Mexico accounted for 3.1% of Utah's exports worldwide in the January-June period of 2013. Taking a larger picture, the United States and Mexico are long-time strategic allies and critical economical partners. We share not only 2,000 miles of border, but also a dynamic commercial relationship that generates more than $500 billion in trade and goods and services and support millions of jobs in both countries. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, in 2013, Mexico bought American products for more than $226 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, that is more than UK, Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Belgium, Sweden, Ireland, Hungary, Finland, Austria, and Czech Republic combined. We got more American products than China, Japan, Australia, and Indonesia together. More than all the Latin American countries. and more than the countries known as BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Is that not to be a good customer? I don't know what it is. And that's why, I told you, we celebrate Governor Herbert's upcoming trade mission to Mexico. We are very confident of his success. We want more products from Mexico in Utah and more Utah products in Mexico. We want the results to translate into an increase on investments and tourism for both countries. We would like to see Mexican businessmen enjoying the many ski resorts in Utah after a successful business meeting. And in the same way, we would like to see Utah businessmen enjoying the sun and the hospitality of our beautiful beaches after doing business in Mexico. So, thank you very much for your attendance today. We are looking forward to work with you in any issue related to do business in Mexico. We will be waiting for you for your next trip to our amazing country with open arms. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for your attendance today. I'd like to thank again Wells Fargo for sponsoring this event, for Consul Arnault's remarks, for Mr. Zapanta's remarks, for Javier Palomares, and for Paul Ahlstrom, as well as for Governor Herbert. We hope you've enjoyed today. We hope you've learned something. One thing that you can be rest assured of is that the state of Utah is committed to a foundation with Mexico. We will continue to build it. We will continue to work hard on strengthening those trade ties, and we'd like to invite you to be part of that. A lot of the foundation's been laid, and you can now take advantage of those trade markets and those opportunities. Thank you again for coming. There are refreshments, and we'd like to use the rest of the time here until whenever you're ready to leave, but to do some networking and to get to know one another. Thank you so very much. Good night.